Can you see this? There's your stripper clip.
Oh, yeah, it's just like the one, yeah, only larger.
It's got little brass tabs on either end to keep it from
popping out.
Yep. And
live.
Green tip.
Ooh.
We are live, everybody. I want to thank our viewers. We are coming at you live from ABN Army Surplus. We're going to be going live with the Polite Society podcast here in just a second. I do want to thank our advertisers before we get rolling here. Of course, ABN Army Solutions, where we are set up here. And as well, we have the Firearms Policy Coalition. And we got so darn many of them that I have to get up to the right section of the show notes. And that is, let me start again. We got Crusader Weaponry, New Jersey Second Amendment Society, Firearms Safety Institute, Firearms Policy Coalition, ABN Army Surplus. Okay, I got to find another way to set that down. Okay, when we do the personal news, it's going to be Gary Doherty and then John, then Rob, and then Susan and I. Okay, are we ready to kick this off?
Scroll back to the top. Yep.
Everybody else is ready to go?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Hi, and welcome to the Polite Society podcast, recorded live on Sunday, March the 8th, 2015. I'm Paul Lathrop. On tonight's show, we'll talk with Kathy Jackson about holsters, gun retention, and let me start that again. I can't see that far away.
Can you put the tablet on this side?
Yeah, maybe. I just don't want that sound to come back. That came back. I'm going to try putting the tablet on the laptop over here.
Do you have your notes zoomed to 200%?
I have notes on a separate laptop, dude.
I know. Do you have them zoomed at 200%?
No.
That's what I do, so I can see it.
You need to move all that stuff down this way. There's plenty of room down here if you want to slide it all to your left.
Yeah, but I don't have cables, and I can't. The only thing is I can't see the. I can't see the laptop. So if I slide it down too far that way, and I don't have the cables to slide everything else. Okay. Let's give this a shot one more time. Oh, what? Okay. Hi, and welcome to the Polite Society podcast, presented by the Firearms Policy Coalition. We're recording this one live, Sunday, March the 8th, 2015. I'm Paul Lathrop. On tonight's show, we'll talk with Kathy Jackson about holsters and gun retention.
I'm John Richardson, and we'll talk about President Obama's visit to South Carolina, where he said buying a gun was easier than buying fresh vegetables.
I'm Rob Morse, and in one of our defensive gun use stories, a man prevented his neighbor's kidnapping.
I'm Gary Doherty, and we'll also cover a couple who were denied being foster parents in Nevada because they had carry permits. So climb aboard.
Strap in.
And hang on.
Episode 317 of the Polite Society podcast starts right now. Hey, and welcome back. This is the personal news segment of the show. We are going to start off with Gary Doherty this week, man. What's been up with you since the last time you were on the air?
A little problem. Went to the range the other day, shot some that Ranger T through the para, and my para has a cold. It is choking on ammo.
Oh.
I don't know. I haven't done any further investigation at the moment. I knew I was going to talk to you guys. I figured I'd listen to you guys' suggestions. But it's a simple matter of a tap. It doesn't. It's not feeding like it's getting hung up on the feed ramp, and a simple tap and loads right in. So, any suggestions?
Your Ranger is hollow point?
Yes, it was doing the same thing with the ball.
I have a Para CCO, which is a officer length, a 3.5-inch barrel. It just does not like hollow point. It only likes ball. So,
Okay. All right.
but every other gun I have, every other 45 ball is hollow point is no problem.
Yeah.
But you have that's a full size gun though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
5-inch. Yeah.
Don't know.
All right. Well, off to the gunsmith, I guess. I don't know what else to. I mean, I don't know how that stuff, between the magazine, the feed ramp, and the barrel. I don't know how that stuff's all supposed to line up, or
And I think there's your issue somewhere in there.
probably, yeah. So that's all that happened, and
But
anyway.
that gun's been reliable until now.
It was reliable for the first 3 boxes, and then the next 2 have been the problem. Yeah,
Crazy.
box of ball and a box of the hollow points.
So it has shot hollow points before.
Yeah,
Yeah, now that is unusual.
I didn't clean it, but I didn't think that was going to be. I mean, that would be, we're kind of still breaking in, so I didn't think that was a big deal. But
No.
You're talking less than 300 rounds?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I could understand a problem with the first 2 boxes, but by now, nuh-uh.
Yeah. Further investigation will be reported on this show.
All I can suggest is 1-800-PARA.
Yeah, check with them.
I would.
You gonna check with them first, or just go straight to a smith?
Check with them first. It's their problem.
Okay. Cool.
Well, John, you're up next, man. What's been up with you?
Well, I helped work the booth yesterday for Grassroots North Carolina at the Asheville Knife and Gun Show. We had a number of people to sign our petition to the General Assembly. We want to do away with the Jim Crow era pistol purchase permits. Try saying that fast.
You had a lot of practice yesterday.
I did. We want to put teeth into our state preemption law, similar to what they do down in Florida, whereby if a local official tries to come up with gun control on the local level, which is illegal, they're going to pay for it. And we also want to require sheriffs to issue carry permits to those who might have had a long ago minor infraction or some sort of behavioral issue that's long ago cured. As to the gun show itself, I came home with a couple of boxes of ammo and a couple of surplus M16 stripper clip bandoliers. So I want to be able to pack away all my green tip ammo. Not that I bought any at the show because it was way too expensive.
Yeah.
Okay. Then Rob, you're up next, man.
I tried to be the great enabler when I took a friend gun shopping and shooting. She's looking for a carry gun. We've walked through a couple stores. This time we went to some ranges so that she could lay hands on. Also, I brought a friend along and we shot a IDPA match on Friday. Now, I had a similar gun jam problem, Gary, but this was operator induced. They had a little port, which was a 6-inch slot between some barrels, and you had to shoot through the port. Don't put your gun between the barrels, because sooner or later it'll swallow one of the ejected hulls and you get a stovepipe. So it wasn't a failure to eject. It bounced around and bounced back in, and I went, well, that was either really stupid or a really cheap lesson on what not to do.
Oh, absolutely good lesson. Yeah, that's a big thing that you see with not just new but experienced competition shooters. They want
Hugging
to
a barrier.
They want to go that as far towards the target as they can, and it's not good. So yeah, it's a good learning lesson. Excellent.
The similar, if most guns eject to the right, don't hug the right wall. I mean, give the brass room.
Right. Sure.
My article came out on Campus Carry on Friday. I also went to a gun store yesterday just to line up some interviews. They're going to start a Girl in a Gun Club, and I want to have them come on the show after they've hopefully all come at the end of their open house.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Now, just this is one of those my job is better than your moments. Don't you wish you could tell everybody that? Gosh, honey, I have to go to the gun store. It's for work.
Well, I did meet a client at the gun show yesterday, but
Could you charge the hours?
I don't charge by the hour, unfortunately.
Okay.
But he was the hospital CFO, so it was really important I make a good impression with him.
And great to see. Well, John, do you remember last week we took 8 doctors, 4 nurses shooting? So yes, awesome to see the hospital administrator there.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Paul, you're up.
Well, we're gonna shoot over to Gary Harpster, man. It's been a while since you've been on the air, dude. What's been up with you?
Well, it has. Hello?
Yeah, we got you.
We got you, okay. Yeah, I think it was at the Pier Gun Show the last time we talked.
Yeah.
Which actually, for a small town gun show, went very, very well. So they had a lot of attendance from the rural communities in central or north central South Dakota, I guess you would say. So that was real wonderful. The big news, I think we've mentioned this before about the Sturgis being the 75th anniversary. So we've had a chance from the retail end to talk to a lot of suppliers around the country that supply our tactical equipment for us. Bags, packs, holsters, all that kind of stuff. And it's been 2 weeks of pretty intense lining up this stuff. I think for most folks don't have any idea, if you look at a big event like at Daytona or Sturgis, how long ahead of time you have to start working on the details from porta potties to electrical hookups to internet to product when it comes in, that type of thing. And it's wonderful in our industry, which I'm not sure really equates to other people's industry, but in the gun industry, you rarely find a bad person, a bad rep or a bad manufacturer, owner of one of the businesses of the suppliers. They're very easy to work with. And as one of the things I found interesting this last week that I'd like to share with the listeners is because you don't see this very often. Oftentimes our suppliers all carry the same thing, as you guys are well aware. You can get Safariland holsters, you can get Fox Tactical holsters, you can get from a variety of people. And as we're putting this big event together, of course, everybody wants a share. And it was interesting to have the different manufacturers say, well, no, I'll tell you what, I know that you've also got so-and-so coming, and they actually have a better selection of this than we do, so let's let them do that. And so they were kind of feeding back and forth to say, we want it to be a successful show, so there's like 15 or 20 different manufacturers coming, and they were all real good at saying, Gary, we got the best shorts in the business, you know that, but so-and-so has got really better shirts, or so-and-so's got a really better belt line. Are you talking to them? Let's get that. And so they were giving and taking instead of all trying to get the money. I want everything of mine in there. They weren't doing that. They were saying, let me share this and that and that. So companies like TruSpec and Fox Tactical, Self-Defense, a lot of companies that our listeners deal with, I just want to give a hoorah out to many of those general managers and presidents because they really are a wonderful group of people to work with. So that's our thing.
Cool. Well, that does leave Susan and I, and not a ton of stuff going on with me. I've been doing. I had a nice long conversation with Bob Main last night. Talked with him about the upcoming classes and some other stuff I cannot talk about, but is definitely gun related. I wish I could talk about it, but you'll hear about it soon. And I've done a lot of editing. Some of the stuff you're going to be hearing starting with this show, some of the stuff you're going to be hearing coming up on future shows, and some other places other than here. We sat down with our voiceover person that does the commercials you hear for the show about an hour ago, and we recorded some stuff there and got some new stuff going out. And spent most of the week on the road and woke up an hour after losing. And I do this every fall and every spring. I hate daylight savings time. I don't care if you leave it at daylight savings time or if you leave it at standard time, but quit screwing around with my clock. And calling it daylight savings time is absolutely a misnomer. You're not saving any time. There is still the same amount of daylight there would be no matter if you screw with the clock or not. Honestly, if you want an extra hour daylight, get your lazy butt out of bed an hour early. That's the end of my rant on that one. As far as direct gun-related stuff, just dry fire, and Susan and I got to looking at our guns today, and we really need to do some thorough cleaning very soon on both vehicles, on both guns. But
The vehicles too.
yeah, oh man, we're getting a good spring melt up here, and it's great except for we live on kind of a dirt gravel kind of thing, to get to our house, and so the brand new Toyota and the somewhat older pickup are pretty well caked with mud on the bottom parts of them. So,
As are my shoes.
yes. So that's pretty boring on our end. That's kind of what's going on with us. I do want to mention before we head off to break, we do have some great training classes coming up this summer up here in Sioux Falls. First one coming up is May 16th and 17th. That's Bob Main and Ben Branham coming up to do advanced beyond concealed carry enhanced. That's basically what they're going to be doing. It's an intermediate to advanced class. Going to be a lot of great stuff coming up in that class. If you've just been to a concealed carry class, nothing beyond that, this is the class for you. If you want to know exactly what's going on with it, go back to the interview we had a couple of weeks ago with Ben Branham. He tells you all about it. Really cool stuff coming up with that one. Also, we've got an interview coming up here later on the show with Kathy Jackson. She's coming up on August 15th to the 16th. She's coming to Sioux Falls. She's going to offer the co-ed cornered cat training class. For registration on that one, contact Susan at politicsandguns.com. We are going to step aside to break, and when we come back, we've got a ton of news, and we'll get to that news right after this. Has Gary got us in the office? Can you hear?
I can kind of hear a little echo now and then. I'm wondering if he doesn't have sound back there.
Okay, but I can't hear when I take the headset off. I don't know.
I was not hearing it.
Wasn't hearing you, Yucca.
Okay. We are 7 minutes away from pulling Kathy Jackson in, so I don't know. Do we want to start news? Do we want to take a short break? What do we want to do, guys?
Well, let's just take a stretch. I mean, we're not in a hurry. 5 minutes is no big deal.
Yeah, we're at. I am extremely punctual with Kathy, so we're by my watch here, by my clock, we're at 6 minutes. So
okay,
let's go
stop it with the jibber jabber. Go have your smoke and come back.
There we go. I'll be right back, and I'll dial her in.
So glad I don't do that anymore.
What's that?
Smoke.
Ah, yeah.
It's been what 2.5 years?
2.5 years. I used to be worse than Paul.
Yeah.
Seriously, I was going through 3 packs a day.
She went cold turkey.
Yeah.
That's how my mom did it. After like 35 years.
Yeah.
It's coming for me.
That was about how long I'd been smoking, and I just decided I'd had enough and said, I can't.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna. So.
I sympathize with anybody who's trying to quit or has quit because it's just not easy.
I used to when the first several times I quit when I was pregnant with each of the kids. I made the mistake of starting again. Yeah, but there were several times when Paul and I both would try to quit. Our children would beg to go live with someone else for a couple days.
Believe that.
Maybe because we were just so mean.
Yeah.
I'm gonna quit trying to. I'm gonna try quitting smoking. They're like, can we go live with Grandma and Sandy, Aunt Lori, anybody?
It's like giving up caffeine. I had done it for a while.
Yeah.
Then I went back to grad school.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it's just a tap on the magazine and it feeds right up.
It could be like a feedlip problem on the magazine itself. I'm just guessing, but
Yeah. What's the two brand new factory ones? Jason's making me that double mag pouch. I got 3 other magazines over with him, which I'm sure I'll have back in a week or 2. Because right now all I have is those 2 factory ones. It came with a gun.
Rob, you're awful quiet today.
Nope.
He's been quiet. He was quiet last weekend too. He's been very contemplative.
Oh, Gary,
Yes, Rob.
you train enough folks. I noticed that when I hurry a shot, and if I am sort of gripping too hard with my right hand, I will tend to shoot left. And that if I eased up a little bit and gripped a little more with my left hand, when I hurried tried to shoot quickly, it's centered up. Is that fairly common?
Because I can hear it.
I just learned the crush grip at Mag 40 a year and a half ago, which was obviously I'm a big fella. I'm fairly strong.
Sure.
So I never had to muscle it to have a grip on a gun and not have a lot of recoil and whatever. Once I learned this crush grip, it really becomes more of a side-to-side grip.
Oh,
with the front-to-back control.
Mm-hmm.
The front. And this is my own thought. This is not a Masada Yup thought, but the front grip is what controls that recoil because you're at the bottom of the axis of that pivot.
Right.
So, but the crush grip is really the side to side, and he talks about the friction, so making sure that your palms have the maximum contact area on either side of the gun, and that's what gives you the control. As far as rushing, if you have this crush grip, it's never going to change, and the recoil is not going to affect that grip. So, like I said, it's new to me after 30 years of shooting, so
okay.
It's definitely helped me. I don't know. I still have horrible eyesight when it comes to aligning sights and targets, but the control has definitely gone up.
Okay.
Does that help? No?
Well, you told me your experience. You gave me something else to think about and to try, but it didn't pertain exactly to the question I asked.
As far as speed on reacquisition, I really think if you practice that crush grip, your square range, standing there, crush grip, you will see a difference in your control on your follow-up shots.
Okay.
Maximum grip coverage on your palms, and all that friction is preventing that side-to-side movement that you're having.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to bring Kathy into this. I'm going to dial her right now.
And she probably has a much better idea than I do, because she's way smarter than I am when it comes to gun training.
Okay.
You all can hear the ring, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Hello, this is Kathy.
Hi, Kathy. It's Paul.
Hello, Paul. How are you?
Doing great. Now, we've got the whole crew in on this. You should be able to hear Rob, Gary Doherty, and John, as well as Susan's here as well. So everybody should be able to hear you, and you should be able to talk to everybody.
Excellent. Run down the names again, please.
Rob, of course, Rob Morris, John Richardson of No Lawyers, Only Guns and Money, Gary Doherty's the owner of the Firearm Safety Institute, and my beautiful bride, Susan.
Excellent. Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Hey,
Hey,
Kath.
Hello.
Hey, Kathy.
Okay, we only got 2 questions from what we posted, asking for questions. I'm going to introduce you. We'll go into those 2 questions first, and then I've got a couple other questions lined up. I want to talk about carrying with a round in the chamber and about handgun retention, and then we'll get into that class that's coming up in April that we want to push.
Okay. Excellent.
Figure 15 minutes, but if we go long, I'll bust it into 2 15-minute segments. So.
Because you know that I tend to talk.
Well, there's a reason we keep asking you to come back. All right, everybody ready to go?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, here we go. Hey, and welcome back to the interview segment of the Polite Society podcast, powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. Joining us again, Kathy Jackson. Kathy's a frequent guest. You've heard her here a lot, and we did run for quite a while the Cornered Cat training tips. But she's also the owner of Cornered Cat, author of The Cornered Cat, A Woman's Guide to Concealed Carry, and I consider her a world-class firearms instructor. When we started to talk about getting the interview going for today, we sent out listeners message to them saying, hey, have you got any questions for Kathy? And Rochelle Harris was kind enough to answer. She wrote, exciting, here's a couple questions. First one, Kathy, what do you think of using a .380 gun carried with hollow points for self-defense instead of bigger calibers? I currently have a Smith & Wesson Bodyguard .380. So I guess adding my little point to that would be we've heard for quite a while now that as long as you're using modern self-defense ammo, 940, 45 really don't make a difference. Does that extend all the way down to .380?
Yes, no, kind of. I think so.
Good answer.
Well, I want to be sure that I've covered all the bases here so that I don't offend anybody, because, you know, I am all about not slaughtering any sacred cows.
Not offending anyone. Yes. That's.
I also totally do not engage in sarcasm, just to be clear here. Okay, the thing with the .380s, they are tremendously popular, and there's a reason they're tremendously popular. You can get .380 caliber guns in smaller sizes than you can even with a 9mm. That means shorter barrels. It means usually a thinner gun, a lighter gun, easier to carry, easier to have with you all the time. Those are the upsides. The downside is, yes, it is a smaller caliber, and the shorter the barrel, the slower the bullet is going to travel when it leaves that barrel. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. This is something you need to know. A while back, Carl Wren of KR Training did a wonderful article in a magazine that I was editing at the time, where he took a group of students out and he split them into 2 groups. Group 1 that he tested and worked with were people who were very accomplished, good shooters already. And Group 2 was people who were not already good shooters. And he gave each group 2 tests. It was exactly the same test each time, but when they shot, and it was a shooting test, a series of drills. The first test was he had them shoot with a larger gun and go through that shooting drill, and then they used a smaller gun, a pocket-sized gun. Now, these were not specifically 380s, but they were smaller size guns, like you would use for the most extreme, easy to carry, the smallest guns you could find. What he found was the people who were already accomplished shooters didn't score worse on the test when they went down to the smaller gun. They were able to shoot just about as well with the larger gun as they were with the smaller gun. They weren't giving up accuracy when they moved to a smaller gun. However, with the group that was less skilled, this would be people who had had exactly one training class, which would be, the concealed carry permit class in his state, or people who had had one class a long time back and hadn't come back for another. Those people, when they went down to the smaller gun, they gave up a large amount of accuracy. They gave up a large amount of speed. So what you're getting a double whammy. By moving down to the smaller gun, you have to be more accurate and more precise because that's what a smaller caliber means. But if you're not already an accomplished shooter, moving down to that size of gun can possibly sacrifice some of your accuracy and some of your speed and some of the skill that you already have. So my advice is, if you want to carry a smaller gun, I don't have any problem at all with people who want to shoot 380s, and especially if they want to be able to shoot the smallest guns that they can shoot so that they can carry that tiny little gun. I'm going to tell you, build your skills first before you go with those small guns, because you don't want to be giving up both the advantages of the larger caliber and the advantages of better, easier shooting that you get with the larger gun. Does this make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So, as far as the bullets themselves, people always want to argue about hardware, but you know me, I'm all about the software. You make sure that your software is in good shape, that you actually know how to use the gun in your hand, and you will end up faring far better than if you don't.
So if I could expand a little bit, and 940, 45 are all good. 380, as long as you're up with your training and you're able to properly manipulate and keep your shots accurate and quick, seems to be okay. Is there a bottom end to where you would recommend, what you would recommend for a caliber for a carry gun?
Personally, I wouldn't go below a 380. However, it has happened from time to time that I've been working with a shooter who has severe arthritis or who has other physical issues that stop them from being able to control the calibers that I think of as defense calibers. The 380s, 9s, 40s, 45s, 357s. Occasionally we'll come across somebody who physically just cannot handle the larger calibers. And in that case, I would far rather see that person armed even with a 22 than to have them completely unarmed. But that's somewhere in my quotes file, I can't remember who said it, but I always thought it was brilliant. There's no exception to the rule, that everybody wants to be an exception to the rule.
I love that.
So,
and now that I've said that, everybody who in earshot just thought, wait a minute, I don't want to be like that.
So, Kathy, when you said they suffered from arthritis, was it grip strength, they couldn't rack, or just they found the recoil too punishing? All the above?
Of the above and then some. Specifically, I recently worked with a woman who had a strong desire to learn how to shoot. Very, very strong desire to learn how to shoot. Highly motivated. Really wanted to find a gun that she could use. Her hands, when you look at them, she didn't have a single finger that was straight.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That gnarled up. When you're dealing with somebody like that, the recoil can knock them out of the game. being able to pull the trigger. She couldn't manage a revolver because there wasn't a single revolver that we could put into her hands where she was able to move the trigger. Even if she used 2 fingers, it just wasn't happening. And running the slide becomes a big deal. There's just so many things that can add up. And in those cases, you know, when you have, sometimes we have people come in who are missing a limb or missing missing some digits on a hand or whatever. In those cases, you do whatever it takes to get them into something that works. Now, that said, unless you're one of those extreme cases, I'd prefer to see you in 380, 9, 40, 45, 38 special, 357. Those are really the defense calibers.
Okay. Well, the next question that Rochelle wrote in then, and I kind of, when we had our conversation on Facebook the other day, I clued you in that this one was coming. What do you think about bra clamshell holsters like the Flashbang? And she writes, I'm just going to finish up with her statement. She finishes up, thanks, love your book, Facebook posts and blogs. Appreciate you making your book into an audiobook. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I you know, hearing from people who have found my material useful to them, that really is what keeps me going. So thank you for that. Now, as far as the bra holster, Paul, you remember we're talking online about this, and I kind of went off into a little bit of a rant.
Mm-hmm.
Let me give you my bottom line before I launch into that rant. For the people who are paying attention at home, I actually really approve of the Flashbang brand bra holster. There are other bra holsters that are out there. I am not saying anything at all about them because I haven't had my hands on a lot of them. Some of the ones I have had my hands on, I didn't find as useful or as worthy of recommendation as the Flashbang. But I am a fan of the Flashbang. Now, with that said, I'm pretty sure that everybody out there by now, it made the rounds everywhere online. If you've been online at all in the last 3 weeks, you've probably seen the news story about the woman who managed to shoot herself in the face while she was adjusting her bra holster. That's the headline that made it all over the web.
Yep.
You remember this?
I remember the story, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting about that is I was privy to a lot of Facebook chatter and a lot of various blogs where, let's just say I was astonished at the number of men who overnight had become experts in bra carrying. There's no holster out there that functions well without somebody knowing what they are doing with that holster. This is true of holsters that you wear on the belt, inside the waistband, outside the waistband, wear them forward of the hip in your appendix carry position. It's true of holsters that you put on your ankle. It's true of guns, holstered guns that you put inside your fanny pack or inside a purse. If you put it in a bra, if you put it in a shoulder holster, there's no gun carry product on the market that works safely without the user knowing what they're doing. Period, full stop, end of story. I personally think it's a miracle that more people don't shoot themselves. When I see people come to the range who have not had formal training before, and I see the way that they're using the products that they have, I am always astonished that they haven't shot themselves yet. Because we see people crossing their hands with the muzzle, we see them pointing the gun right into the core of their body every time they holster the gun, and most of them don't even realize they're doing it. These are belt-carried holsters. I see people reaching over, putting the gun into the holster while they're holding on to the holster with their other hand, so they're pointing the gun right at their other hand. I see people doing all sorts of things with these products that they're really not designed to do. And it's amazing to me because we come across that bra holster story, and then instantly everybody wants to blame that product. But when somebody shoots himself in the rear end, putting a gun into the belt holster, there's not a big rush to say, oh, that was a belt holster problem. There is a big rush to say, hey, he should have had his finger off the trigger when he put his gun in the holster.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's no product out there. The bra holster does not require you to look down the muzzle of the gun. If you manage to shoot yourself in the face using a bra holster, I submit to you that you were doing something wrong, because the muzzle should not have been pointing at your face. It doesn't do that. Every type of carry device out there has specific danger points, things that you need to be aware of. A lot of times people think, well, good grief, it's just a bucket for the gun. How hard can this be? But my files are absolutely full of stories where people shot themselves, shot people that they cared about, nearly shot themselves using holsters when they hadn't learned how to safely use the holster. Now, for everybody listening, I'm going to clue you in. The 4 rules, you know, the one that says treat all guns as if they are always loaded. Never point the gun at anything you're not willing to destroy. Keep your finger off the trigger until your sights are on target. Be sure of your target and what's beyond. Those 4 rules were not written specifically for the range. They were written for people who were living with the gun. They are supposed to come from the range with you into your real life, and that includes every time you put the gun into the holster. If you can't figure out a way to put the gun into the holster without pointing it at your own self, and especially without pointing it at your own self with your finger on the trigger, then you have a much bigger problem than just figuring out which holster to use. You have a training problem, and you need to fix that training problem.
Amen. I remember it wasn't a holstering problem, but when you came to Sioux Falls and did the Cornered Cat class almost 2 years ago now, and I went through your class. I remember you in the middle of my draw stroke. It came that my firearm, thank goodness, my finger was nowhere near the trigger. But if it would have went off, it would have taken my hat clean off my head. And you pointed out to me that I was having issues with my draw stroke, and pointed out the correct way to fix it. But I just wanted to bring up that's part of the reason why people need to go to a professional trainer. Even if you think you're doing things right, they can point out what is wrong with what you're doing and point you in the right direction to correct things.
Well, that's just it. Paul, when I pointed that out to you, did you know that the muzzle was pointed that direction?
No, I had no. I was more. And you pointed out to me, and correctly, is I was most intent on getting the front sight into my vision and getting the front sight aligned with what I wanted to shoot. The fact that the muzzle was pointing up was not in my. I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah. Okay, so back to bra holsters. Let me tell you where the big danger is with any type of alternative carry device. And by alternative carry device, I mean the kind of ways that we carry guns that are typically not allowed in classes or on ranges. So anything other than your standard belt holster carried in a standard location. The problem with the alternative carry devices, the big challenge with them, is that you can't, it's very, very difficult to get that kind of feedback from somebody outside yourself, because you can't take them to the range and have somebody else say, hey, did you know that you were pointing the gun at your own hand when you were putting it in the belly band?
Okay.
And there's not a lot of knowledge out there for people to be teaching each other how to safely use that bra holster. You can go on YouTube and get videos of people using the bra holster. What you will find is almost all of them have the muzzle of the gun pointing at the brachial artery in the left arm as they're drawing or as they're putting the gun away. And that's a pretty easy thing to fix. All you have to do is lift that elbow out of the way by habit every time you draw the gun. But they aren't modeling that for you on YouTube, and it's not something where you're getting that personalized feedback that says, hey, you know, you were thinking about 6 other things. Did you realize which direction the muzzle was pointed? Right. That outside yourself feedback is something that people really, really need. I'm going to recommend something that sounds extreme but really is not. If you're carrying a gun every single day, or if you're carrying a gun even occasionally, I recommend that your next purchase, apart from training, which is also something you need to do, but your next equipment purchase should probably be a blue dummy gun, the same shape as your own gun, that will fit in your holsters. And the reason you're doing that is so that you can set up a camera, and watch yourself from the outside as you're working with your bra holster, as you're working with your belly band, as you're working with your ankle holster, your thigh holster, whatever it is that, your fanny pack, your purse. Watch it from the outside and really see where those danger points are, because you will not feel them from the inside. It's something that requires another set of eyes looking at what you're doing. And if you can't get somebody else to be those eyes for you, then you're going to have to find a way to be those eyes for yourself.
All right, we're coming up on the end of the segment, but we've got a couple more questions and other things to come up with to talk with you yet. So can I talk you to hang out for one more segment, Kathy?
Works for me. Thanks, Paul.
All right, we will be right back then with more Kathy Jackson right after this. Yeah, we went about 3 minutes long on that segment, but I can clean it up. No big deal.
You got me preaching. I'm sorry.
It's quite all right.
Hey, it's Sunday. You're supposed to preach.
Okay. Let's see. Carrying with a round in the chamber, handgun retention, and Susan found. I'll surprise you with it because I want your.
You're so good to me, Paul.
I want your natural reaction to it. Just think about everything you posted to Facebook today, and you'll know.
Oh, no. Everything I posted to Facebook today. Okay, fine. Thanks for the warning.
Okay.
I have a fanny pack question when we
get
a chance.
Okay, cool.
All right. Coming back in 5. Hey, and welcome back. This is our second interview segment with Kathy Jackson. Kathy, thanks for hanging around. Couple things quick I want to get into, and the first one is, I'm kind of hoping you're going to agree with me on this point, that I would rather someone carry with an empty chamber than not carry at all. And to anybody, I'd like to say to anybody that has a loved one that doesn't carry with a round in the chamber, I'd like to encourage them not to apply too much pressure to get the person to do something they don't feel safe doing. The question I have, Kathy, then is, are there any exercises or other recommendations that you have that will help make someone who is unfamiliar with carrying more comfortable with carrying with a round in the chamber?
That's really a good question. Okay, I will agree with you that you should never pressure somebody to do something they feel unsafe doing with a firearm. Period, full stop, end of story. We can educate, we can encourage, but when it comes down to outright pressure, that's a bad, bad thing. We don't want people doing things that they feel unsafe doing. So the goal here is to help them feel more comfortable. And the way that we help them feel more comfortable is by giving them the tools and the knowledge they need to be confident to make those kind of choices. Usually when people don't want to carry with a round in the chamber, it boils down to one of two questions. By the way, some people are going to be offended when I say this, but after listening to people over and over and over again, these are the two things it boils down to. One is being able to trust your equipment. That is the holster that you're putting the gun in, the fact that the gun will stay in that holster, that the trigger is completely covered and will stay completely covered at all times. So that's factor one, is having good equipment. Factor two is having good training. If you don't trust yourself not to touch the trigger when you should not touch the trigger, then you're not going to be comfortable with a round in the chamber. Once you've had enough training, you've gotten enough confidence with how the gun works and your skill at handling the gun, then you tend to just kind of naturally, automatically, oh yeah, I'm perfectly comfortable with a round in the chamber because I know that I won't make the gun go off. And as long as we have good equipment that we can trust, then both the equipment and ourselves are trustworthy, there's no longer any reason to not have a round in the chamber.
Okay, cool. Next question then, and this leads directly into what brought you onto the show today. I wanted to talk a little bit about handgun retention, specifically training for handgun retention. I went through a very abbreviated, about 4-hour class with you, and Don, I believe, is who came with you to Sioux Falls. But I look at retention training like this. We carry guns in case something bad happens where we need to use deadly force to protect ourselves or for our loved ones. There's something that, like that happening, statistically is actually a really tiny percentage of the, has a really tiny, small percentage of happening. I've seen people make comments to the effect of, well, if you let them get close enough to take your gun, you've already screwed up, and that's why you don't really need handgun retention training. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, if you're going to be training for something that's already got a small statistic probability, you would think you'd want to train for the smallest statistical probability as well.
Well, here we go. There's a few reasons why I teach handgun retention. One is because it just drives me up the wall when I hear people say things to women, such as, oh, you'll just get that gun taken away from you and used against you. I want to make sure that people I teach have the self-confidence that they know how to use the gun in extreme circumstances, and they know how to protect the gun if somebody should try to grab it from them. Now, the idea that nobody will ever be within your bubble, within your personal space, that is not congruent with reality. If you've ever gotten onto an elevator, you've let somebody into your personal space. I mean, ever gotten onto an elevator. If you have ever stood in line at Starbucks, you have had people close enough to grab a gun away from you if you had drawn it and they had seen it. If you have ever been in a crowded environment, such as, for example, walking in the grocery store and somebody passes within 3 feet of you, you've had people close enough to take your gun away if your gun was out at that time. The idea that incidents only happen in a certain way really gets in the way of being able to protect ourselves realistically. If you go, and here I am back at telling people to go look at YouTube, go look at YouTube and see criminal events. You can Google for surveillance videos. You can search for surveillance videos for purse snatchings. You can search for surveillance videos of shootings. You can search for surveillance videos of muggings. There will be a huge number of them. And the thing that they all have in common is the criminal got close to the victim before the interaction really started. And in some cases you can say, well, why didn't the victim see it coming? But in most cases, when you look at it, it was the protective coloration that the criminal uses in order to close that distance. So that's first of all, the idea that you can always keep people that far away is just not realistic. The other thing is there are circumstances and situations where you have the gun out, you go to fire it, it jams, whatever reason. If the gun is not working for whatever reason, you probably still don't want to just do the Hollywood thing and throw it at the bad guy. You actually probably want to maintain control of it. So having that skill set improves your confidence, it improves your ability to survive more realistic situations, and it reduces the chance that your gun will get taken away from you in a terrible situation. So that's my rationale for teaching handgun retention.
And you do have a class coming up in April, specifically about, well, it's not just handgun retention; it's also firing from a down position, right?
Yes, I am very, very excited about that class. It's going to be in Philadelphia. Annette Evans is our class organizer, and I'm hoping you'll have all the information in the show notes for people. But and it's at New Holland Rifle and Pistol Club, which is just outside of Media, Pennsylvania. But I'm very excited about that class because what we have is I've combined the downed defender skill set, which is the skill set for what to do if you get knocked off your feet. And a lot of times, you say, okay, it's all about downed defender, and people think that we're talking about oorah macho stuff. We are not. We are talking about a class specifically designed for clumsy people.
That's me.
We're talking about a class specifically designed for people who aren't all that physical, who are more likely to get knocked off their feet if something bad happens, who are more likely to trip, more likely to fall. It's designed for people who are smaller, maybe, than the potential attacker would be. The title of the class is Against the Odds. So if the odds are not in your favor, there are some things you can do, and that's really why we've combined the handgun retention with the down defender, is because we're looking specifically at people who don't have that overwhelming physicality, but who still might get embroiled in a physical problem, and ways that they can turn the tables.
Okay, cool. Rob, you had some questions, right?
I do. Well, okay, I'll start with the personal ones if we have time. Kathy,
okay.
I noticed that I tend to shoot to the left if I'm, shooting strong hand only, or if I'm gripping really firmly with my right hand, and that I tend to straighten out if I'll balance the grip between my two hands. Is that a common problem and a good solution?
Okay, most likely, I have not seen you shoot, at least not
right.
that I recall, certainly not recently. Have I seen you shoot? Help me out here.
Nope.
There we go. Okay, I have not seen you shoot, but the most common reasons that people go to the left is jerking or slapping the trigger. When you're telling me that it smooths right back out when you hold the gun, when you balance the gun between two hands, and that it happens more when you're shooting one-handed, there's a couple of possibilities. One is, I'm going to tell you, shooting one-handed, you want to curl your thumb down and make a better fist.
Okay.
That's going to even out the pressure on both sides of the gun.
Yep.
It's one of the reasons why I teach that thumbs curled down grip for both one-handed and two-handed, but that's getting into
but okay,
doctrinal heresy in some schools, I'm afraid.
Yes. They'll get over it.
Now, the other reason that people often shoot to the left is because they're actually pushing the trigger over to the left, and that has to do with which part of your finger is on the trigger, and that's something where you're going to need to adjust how deeply your finger is on that trigger. The goal is to be able to press it straight back.
Okay.
And if you're using so much trigger finger that you're curling over in order to press the trigger, you wouldn't notice it as long as you're holding the gun optimally, but you will notice it when you speed up or when you don't have that exact correct grip. So work with your finger placement on the trigger.
And this question came up when we were talking about, air quotes here, the caliber wars. If you had your choice, do you like to start new students with a .22, or do you want them to start with what they carry?
Boy, that's a, no pun intended, loaded question. I was actually talking about this with a student yesterday, and what I told her was that if she lived in the best of all possible worlds where she had both money and time, it's good to become familiar with a firearm using a .22. A .22 can certainly get you some pretty good target shooting skills. However, very few of us live in the best of all possible worlds. And most people are not willing to buy two guns when they could, in fact, just buy one gun. Most people are not willing to put off self-defense for the year or so that it takes to get up to speed with a gun that's really not best for self-defense. That being the case, I tend to encourage people to just get the gun that they're going to use to defend themselves. I'm not really a big fan of starting out shooting with tiny little guns. So, when you say, should I just learn to shoot with the gun I'm going to carry? The answer is yes, as long as you're going to carry a gun that's large enough that you can effectively learn to shoot with it.
Right.
So maybe going with a Glock 19 instead of a Glock 42.
Right.
Right. The learning curve for the larger gun is shorter than or is less intense than the learning curve for the smaller guns. 9mm makes a really, really good teaching round because it is inexpensive. It doesn't have a lot of recoil. It's available in a huge variety of firearm types and shapes, so
Right.
that you can find something that will fit your hand, find something that will fit your aesthetic, find something that that works for you.
Right.
And that's kind of my generic advice is go with 9mm, go with a polymer gun, go with mid-sized. And then, of course, everybody wants to be an exception, so go ahead and go yourself.
Do you like laser training pistols?
I do, as an addition to having gotten good training in live fire.
Mm-hmm.
I am not convinced that laser training pistols are doing any favors for people who have not already built a good foundation in live fire under the eye of an experienced instructor. I think they tend to reinforce some bad habits just because you don't have the recoil to contend with. And
okay.
they can cause you to get a little bit sloppy there, and so the skills that you're learning aren't necessarily transferring to the range unless you are very self-aware to a degree that most people are not.
Okay. Well, then, Gary, did you have a question you wanted to ask, Gary Doherty?
I did. We were talking about holsters early, and I had a Colt Government in a fanny pack a long time ago that I sold. And a while back I bought, it's my purse. I like to carry my junk in there. And but I bought a really expensive holster fanny pack. And after Mag 40, I decided to start carrying a backup gun. And I thought, oh, perfect. This is designed for this and all that. I opened up the quote-unquote holster section, and there is there's no place to put a holster to mount it where it would not come out with the gun on a draw.
Oh.
So I'm confused. Was it designed for the gun only, which I could understand, but or is it? What do you think?
Okay. I do not want to name specific products here, so we are not going to do that. I'm going to tell you the features that I think should be part of any purse, pack, or bag.
Okay.
And that would include fanny packs. That would include the man bags from you see the military style man bags, and you see purses. They need a separate compartment for the gun. That separate compartment must have a way to hold the gun securely inside the compartment. It must have a way to keep the trigger covered inside the compartment. Without those features, without being able to keep the trigger covered and hold the gun in a known orientation, that's not really a gun carrying bag. It's not really a gun carrying pack. It is simply something that can be repurposed for that. Your specific pack, are you telling me there's no Velcro in it?
There's no. There's nothing. It's just two smooth slab sides of nylon on either side. It's got the double zipper opening, but there's nothing to mount a holster in the pouch, in the area.
If I had a product like that, I would probably be getting out a needle and thread and sewing in a Velcro panel, and the Velcro panel would then hold the internal holster. The reason for that internal holster, there's a whole bunch of really good reasons. One is it's going to keep the gun in the same orientation all the time.
Right.
Because I've heard, I could be wrong, but I've heard that it's really embarrassing to reach into a purse or reach into a pack and grab the gun by the muzzle instead of by the butt.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, yeah, I don't know if
I
you
mean,
can
I-
actually make that flip in this small of an area, but I understand what you're saying about keeping it in a fixed position.
No, and Yeah, in the smaller bags, that's not really a concern. The other concern is you referred to a double zipper. The very best, fastest fanny packs to get into you're going to be able to just rip them open and then grab the gun. But if you rip open a compartment that has a loose gun in it, the gun is not necessarily going to stay in the compartment that you just ripped open.
Right. Yeah.
They have this tendency to
You brought a fanny pack holster to your class a couple years ago up here in Sioux Falls, and I was flat amazed when you demonstrated that, how fast that thing came open.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love those things. I love the ones that are well designed because they can get you into the gun very, very quickly. And for what it's worth, there are purses that are just as fast, that have that same double zipper, rip it open feature going on. But the downside of that is if you don't have a way that the gun is going to stay inside that compartment, then when you rip it open, bad things are going to happen.
Sure. Yeah.
So. And more to the point, and probably the most important thing, is you need a way to protect the trigger. If what you have is a pack that has thin nylon dividing the gun compartment from the rest of the pack or from the outside world, then there is always a chance that something in the other compartment or something from the outside world can just move against the outside of the pack and make that trigger move, and you don't want that to happen.
Right.
Well, we are coming up on the end of the segment again. These things seem to fly by when we're having good conversations like this. But before we go, Kathy, I do want to bring up one thing that got posted to Facebook today. Susan actually pointed it out today as we were doing our morning errands. And I don't have it written down right in front of me, Susan, so if I get this wrong, please help me. But something to the effect of, Kathy, you posted something to the effect of somebody was saying that, boy, it's sure awful that training costs an awful lot of money. And was it Tamara Keel?
Tamara
Yes,
Keel
Tamara
replied.
of the View from the Porch blog.
It said that. I'll let one of you two finish it.
Tamara Keel replied, if George Zimmerman had spent that money on training, we'd never have heard his name. Because he would have known what to do and what not to do.
And that whole situation would very likely have stopped much sooner than it did if he had had the mindset of self-defense as opposed to the mindset of what he did have. Now, this isn't about George Zimmerman per se. This is about the tremendous value of training. Training doesn't necessarily, it should help you shoot straighter and all of that, but the main thing that good training does is it helps you make realistic decisions that actually fit in with the real world. That can save you a ton of money, it can save you a ton of time, and it can save you a world of grief.
Amen. Well, again, our segment has just flown by. I do want to thank you so much for joining us again, Kathy. And I don't want it to be so long before we have you back on next time. However, I know training season is starting up here real soon. But I do want to thank you again for coming on.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everybody. It was nice to talk to you all.
And we'll be back with our DGU segment when we come back right after this. God, that was great stuff.
You betcha.
So, Gary, what pack is it?
Gary?
Whoops, are we gone?
Yeah, we're here, but Gary Doherty, can you hear us still?
Gary Doherty forgets to unmute after he coughs. Tommy's gun pack.
Oh. Well,
Kathy, before you answer, we're not recording, but this is going out on YouTube.
It's on YouTube.
Okay, I didn't say anything. I just asked for a brand name. It was just a noise.
Okay, but what you're saying now will not go on the podcast, but it is going out on YouTube.
Oh dear. Okay. Thank you very much, Paul.
I'll send you an email, Kathy. We'll talk.
All right. Thank you. You guys have a good day.
Yeah.
Thanks,
appreciate it.
Kathy.
Take care, Kath. Thanks.
Okay, and Skype is clear. All right, I need to take one more bathroom break, and then we'll get into news, okay?
Okay.
Please.
All right.
She's so smart.
She is.
Now you have more things to try, Rob.
Yes, that's awesome.
I thought you may have. I kind of skipped over the basic stuff because I know you're an instructor. I figured you thought all that stuff, but
Well, I did, but why don't I go back and check again?
there you go. You know, never hurts to have somebody hold your smartphone and video you while you're at the range.
Right.
Review that stuff.
One thing I did is I started doing, and we talked about this in the last podcast, I'll call it long distance shots, which is pretty much the length of my house with a laser pistol.
Yeah.
To try and, make sure I'm pulling straight back.
Yeah. I talk about it in class. Do you try and do it without a gun in your hand? And look at your finger? So that you can see that the actual motion of the fingertip, where it would be contacting the trigger, is going straight up and down. Or straight back, but I mean I do it up so I can see it, so I know that,
Okay.
Okay, let me get to the top of the news segment and we can fire off. All right. Okay, Rob, you want to bring us in?
You ready?
Yep.
I'm ready.
Rolling now.
Welcome back. This is the news segment of the Polite Society podcast powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. Is Susan reading the news today?
Yes, Susan is. Obama is never far from his gun control efforts. In a South Carolina college meeting, Obama again simplistically blamed guns for violence. He claimed that in some neighborhoods, it's easier to buy a handgun and clips than it is to buy a book or a fresh vegetable. In reality, this observation speaks to the neighborhoods themselves and to a man that has probably not bought a gun or a book in a long time, and that the vegetable he knows best is Joe Biden.
Oh, I love that line.
No, I find it interesting that in his first visit to South Carolina since he's been president, so that's 6 going on 7 years, well, maybe it's 7 years now, he chose Benedict College where he knew he would get a friendly reception. I hate to say, I don't want to sound racist or anything, but it's a historically black college, rather than a larger school kind of like University of South Carolina, Clemson, or even the Citadel. And
They would have had to impose an applause track if they took him to the Citadel.
yeah. Or Clemson.
Or yeah. Now, I think the president's right. It is easier for a vegetable to be elected to public office than for a vegetable to buy a gun, at least in California.
The Obama administration's attempt to ban the popular, inexpensive M855 ammunition is gathering significant resistance on Capitol Hill. In just a short time, 55% of the House lawmakers, including 7 Democrats, have signed a letter objecting to the proposed ban. The letter urges the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms to abandon the attack on a bullet commonly used in AR-15 rifles. This follows the introduction last week of the Protecting Second Amendment Rights Act from Representative Tom Rooney from Florida that would roll back the ATF's power to regulate ammunition.
You know, it's interesting. On Friday afternoon, Katie Pavlich came out with a breaking article saying that she compared the 2014 ATF gun regulation compendium with the 2005. show the exemption for M85. The 2014 did not. And her conclusion was they had already decided that it was going to be banned. Late on Friday night, the ATF very hurriedly says, "Oh, that was just a publishing mistake. No, it's still exempt." So I think somebody's hand got caught in the cookie jar there.
Huh.
Yeah, in parlance to what I'm used to, somebody stepped on a Winky.
Yeah.
Well,
they thought we would notice.
Like I said, they're getting smarter about going around the under the rug and around the back door on this stuff. They've tried to ban scary-looking rifles so many times. They've figured out that's not working. So this is one example. Make ammunition more expensive for a very common firearm. People will shoot less. People will be less interested in getting into guns. People will be less interested in taking their kids shooting. The more expensive you make a hobby, the less people that do it. If you look at snow skiing, for example, it's super expensive to do. So there's a much smaller group of people that do it. You look at jogging or whatever. I mean, it's cheap, and there's lots of people doing it. So they're trying to make it socially unacceptable and too expensive to enjoy as a hobby. That's all I can see.
Paul, weren't you telling me that certainly 22 Magnum, will 22 long rifle penetrate a soft vest?
I do not believe so. I don't even know about 22 Magnum, but I know 17 HMR will, because it goes much faster.
I think those two are comparable, the Magnum. So, yeah, they can pretty much then ban any rifle caliber because somebody's made a handgun that would fire it.
Well, I actually just saw this past week or the week before some guy who was using 9mm right through a plate. It was not armor piercing, it was normal. The only difference was it was 50 grain bullets rather than your 115, yes. 124, yep. 147, and it was going at 2,000 feet per minute.
Sure. No, second.
Per second, yes. Yeah. I was still thinking of RPMs. And it was the velocity that was the key thing.
Right.
Yeah, if you're gonna, you can come up with a way to make almost any caliber armor piercing, plate piercing, if you've got the ability to. Well, and a lot of our listeners do reload and can play with different loads, different things. So yeah.
And one other thing I came across in preparation for my own letter is that they said, oh, when we exempted M85, 855 ammo, there were no AR pistols. And that is actually incorrect. As of 1977, there was a Bushmaster pistol that was an AR. It was classified as a pistol and not a rifle. It was kind of a bullpup design, but it was still meant to be shot one-handed like a pistol. So even then, they're wrong.
Well, they figure if they repeat it enough times, the lie will become the truth.
And the media will believe it anyway.
Yeah.
Gun control makes the vulnerable more vulnerable. Women are among the top beneficiaries of concealed carry laws. Where gun control is stringent, crimes against women rise. This should be obvious, even to politicians. Rape victim Amanda Collins believes having her gun could have made a difference, and she wants Nevada lawmakers to legalize campus carry for the sake of the women on campuses now. Collins told lawmakers about the moment her attacker closed in on her in a campus parking garage. Quote, "Out of the corner of my eye, I could see the university police cruisers parked across the way. And in that same moment, I knew that the university police offices had already closed. I knew no one was coming to help me." End quote. Assemblywoman Michelle Fiore is sponsoring campus carry legislation. Her bill, AB 148, is co-sponsored by 18 additional Assembly Republicans.
There's a great video of Assemblywoman Fiore and Professor John Lott testifying before the Nevada Senate. You could, as you imagine, politicians ask fairly pointed questions. The anti-gun senators would ask a hypothetical question like, isn't it possible that a student could get drunk and carry a gun to class? And then follow up with, that seems dangerous to me, and isn't that what you're advocating? And then Dr. Lott would say, they don't. Your students could do that now, but they don't. They could get drunk across the street from the campus. There's certainly bars nearby, and they could carry in those bars, and there could be a problem there. But when we look at the record, they don't. We've looked, and concealed carry holders don't behave that way.
You know, I think I can't say we all, but once
Say y'all?
Well, I would include you, Rob, except you have a recalcitrant sheriff.
Oh, okay, that problem. Yeah.
Yeah. But we have gone through the effort to get our carry permits, and it's not, at least in our state, it's not an easy process, and it's certainly not cheap. And you're not going to, for the most part, nobody is going to put that at risk by getting drunk and carrying. It's equivalent to getting a certification and not doing your continuing education.
Right.
You do it because it was so hard to get the certification to begin with.
Right.
I would agree. That's an excellent video. I also watched it. I am adding a link to the show notes. And he makes such excellent points on everything, all of their, what if this happens, what if that happens, and he said, yeah, you're right, hypothetically it could happen, but we haven't seen that. And he talks about the 11 states where they have campus carry and they have never had this situation arise. So there is no evidence. I mean, yes, you could dream up any wild scenario, but there is no evidence of these scenarios actually happening after they pass the law allowing students to protect themselves.
Well, and that brings to mind, and this will stick in my head for a long time, Rachel, when she was going through her, when they had that committee meeting down in
Austin?
In Austin that she was talking about. She was saying that they were asking for Texas to boldly go where 45 states have already gone before. Well, we're asking Nevada to boldly go where 11 states have already gone before. Not quite as bad a situation as Texas has got, but Nevada, come on, there's 11 states that have got this that have had no issues with it.
I really appreciate Dr. Lott's perspective when he's going, you know, if people were different, your question is valid. But we've measured how people behave. So what planet are you on?
Yeah.
Right.
West Virginia senators voted 32-2 in favor of a bill to eliminate the license requirement for concealed carry. Besides rescinding the permit requirement, the bill sets the age of legal concealed carry at 18 years, not 21. Senators also defeated an amendment requiring a handgun safety course before carrying. The amendment was successfully opposed as a backdoor licensing scheme. There is no word about any Virginian firearms liberalization.
I missed this one. Can you guys help me? How is this licensing, a backdoor licensing scheme?
Oh, if we required you to go take a class and you had to sign up for a state-registered class, perhaps?
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to constitutional carry, which has no requirements other than being
Of age and not a criminal.
exactly.
Right. What I like about it is it lowers the age to 18. Now, you have to be 21 to buy a handgun. But if your dad gives you a handgun, you can legally carry it in West Virginia now.
Well, in one sense, you have to be 21 to buy a handgun through an FFL. Through a private sale, in many states, you could do it. Because that was the kind of an issue about handgun sales at age 21 in Texas. NRA was suing based on that. Also, they were suing about carry, trying to get it lowered down to 18 in Texas, because if you were a military veteran and under 21, you could carry.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they lost both lawsuits.
Gabby Giffords joined the Democrat lawmakers on Capitol Hill to push for background checks at gun shows as a way of stopping violence. Naturally, the NRA pointed out that Giffords' attacker had passed the same type of background check to acquire the firearm he used to injure her. Breitbart News further showed that Giffords' attacker wasn't an aberration. Many other killers had easily passed their background checks. Even with hundreds of millions of dollars of expenditures and the restrictions of rights of millions of gun owners, background checks were incapable of preventing these tragedies. Pointing out these inconvenient truths was too much for Slate magazine. They claimed that mentioning these things was a new low and an attempt to taunt a victim of gun violence, as if political correctness should trump the open discussion of the harsh failures of the background check schemes. Perhaps Slate should check themselves for brain damage.
I read some of the other articles put out by this same Slate writer, and he advocated that St. Louis should move across the Mississippi River to Illinois because that would solve their crime problem, because Illinois has such much stronger gun laws. And all I can say is that whenever I'm near East St. Louis, Illinois, I try to get past there as quickly as possible because the place scares me to death.
I have to occasionally deliver down in East St. Louis area, and I want to be there not even 1 second longer than I have to be. East St. Louis, south side of Chicago, very, very similar. I would much rather be in St. Louis, Missouri than anywhere in Illinois, honestly.
East St. Louis to me is like a third world country. You have abandoned buildings. I mean, the population's dropped by 50,000 people over the last 40 to 50 years.
Yeah.
Okay, can we stop picking on my state now?
No, I'm not picking on your state. I'm picking on East St. Louis.
Handgun sales shot to a new California record in 2014, far exceeding the 1993 high of 433,000. 1993 was the time violent crime peaked in the state. Gun sales have increased dramatically nationwide, and in California during the last few years following calls for more gun control. Due to California's draconian and unworkable gun laws, many handguns are falling off the state's not unsafe handgun list and will not be available for dealer sale. California's handgun buyers must buy now or lose the opportunity to exercise their rights in the near future.
I mentioned that I took a friend shopping for a carry gun, and I learned some things about our roster. Some of the off-roster guns are available, but they're available through a person-to-person sale. You still use an FFL, you still get a background check, but the gun store can't order new or can't carry the guns for sale.
So you're saying that if I were to get here in North Carolina, find something that you're not allowed, say a Gen 4 Glock, and then you and I came to an agreement that you bought that from me because I decided I didn't want the Glock, and I shipped it to your FFL, you could get a Gen 4 Glock?
I don't know if it has to be in-state or out-of-state, John.
Okay.
But were you in state? If you moved to California and you brought your list of off-roster guns with you, yeah, I could buy them from you. Also, and the way a lot of these guns get on the market is by policemen. They're not restricted. They can buy and sell firearms, and they, in fact, that's been an issue with some LEOs essentially turning into minor gun dealers by buying off-roster and selling person to person.
Rob, can I ask a question? Do you think that California politicians will use this fact that handgun sales were at a new record as saying, see, the handgun roster list does not stop sales?
Oh, they'll use any excuse they can come up with.
Okay.
All right, well, we're coming up to the end of this segment, so let's go ahead and step off to break. We're going to be talking national reciprocity when we come back, the next segment, right after this. Okay. I turn my volume. I'm not hearing myself very well. There we go.
You never listen.
All right.
I've been turning him down for years. In more ways than one.
I'm not going there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Turning him down, turning him. Nope. Don't go. No.
No.
Yes.
No. It's a family show. That's far enough. Let's not go any further down that rabbit hole.
Okay.
So, who's bringing us back from the break?
John, it's your turn, man. And we are rolling now.
Hi, and welcome back to the second part of the news segment presented by the Firearms Policy Coalition. What's next up?
You can do something for the right of self-defense. National reciprocity bills are in the Senate and the House. Call your senator or Congress critters and ask them to co-sponsor these bills. S-498, introduced by U.S. Senator John Cornyn, Republican, Texas. This legislation would respect the rights of individuals who possess concealed carry permits from their home state or who are not prohibited from carrying concealed in their home state to exercise those rights in any other state that does not prohibit concealed carry. This bill currently has 20 co-sponsors.
I am proud to say that Senator John Thune is one of them. However, our other senator, Mike Rounds, is not.
There was no chance that my California senators, Boxer and Feinstein, we know they're crazy, but if they signed this, we would probably be looking to sign papers because they've just completely changed their stripes. How about the rest of you? Who signed?
Well, I have 1 out of 2. Richard Burr was one of the original co-sponsors. Tom Tillis hasn't signed on yet. I think he's kind of like your Mike Rounds. He's too new, and they just didn't bring it around to him.
I can tell you without even looking it up, my Republican and my Democrat senator would never sign this or sponsor.
Yeah.
H.R. 923, introduced by U.S. Representative Marlon Stutzman, Republican, Indiana. This legislation is the House companion bill to S-498. The legislation would also respect the rights of individuals who possess concealed carry permits from their home state or who are not prohibited from carrying concealed in their home state to exercise those rights in any other state that does not prohibit concealed carry. This bill currently has 12 co-sponsors.
My congressman is not on the list. I've sent him a letter through the NRA and also through PopVox to encourage him.
My representative, Kristi Noem, is not a co-sponsor either.
Did you ping her and try and convince her?
Not only with an email, but also with a phone call.
Thank you.
No North Carolina congressman is a co-sponsor of this bill, which could be the reason why the next one Susan's going to tell us about that they are a co-sponsor of.
H.R. 986, introduced by U.S. Representative Richard Hudson, North Carolina. This bill would allow any person with a valid carry permit or license issued by a state to carry a concealed firearm in any other state that does not prohibit concealed carry. This bill would also provide legal protection for law-abiding concealed carry permit holders against states that violate the intent of this bill. This bill currently has 104 co-sponsors.
Yeah, Darrell Issa didn't sign.
Same with Nome.
However, my congressman, Patrick McHenry, who is also the Chief Deputy Majority Whip, did sign.
Good.
And I'm just trying to get over what the difference between these two bills is. As I read it, it sounds like if you have come from a constitutional carry state, the first two bills would allow you to carry, whereas 986 does specify you had to have a permit.
In all states except for New Hampshire, you can get a permit. New Hampshire is the constitutional carry. They mean it so much, they don't issue permits.
I think you mean Vermont.
Vermont, excuse me, yeah. In Vermont...
We're all small and full liberals, you know.
Yeah. My great apologies to anybody up in New England that I might have offended. But no, in Vermont, they really mean constitutional carry because they don't issue permits. You just flat don't need them. Apparently, they figure that Vermont's so good that nobody ever leaves the state for anything.
H.R. 402, introduced by U.S. Representative Rich Nugent, Republican, Florida. This bill would allow any person with a valid carry permit or license issued by a state to carry a concealed firearm in any other state that does not prohibit concealed carry. The bill currently has 76 co-sponsors.
Now, I'm training up this young lady, and again, we can't get permits from our sheriff, but she travels out of state a lot. And I just found a class next Friday that can get her Florida and Utah permits. Well, and I thought, darn it, I should go take those because I should be embarrassed if I went to the Gun Rights Policy Conference in Phoenix and wasn't carrying, just because I didn't go get the permit. Come on. I understand I could open carry. I'm not sure about being from out of state, but you know, if it's just takes money and class time, I can do that. And I wonder how these different bills will look at those of us that are in may issue states. I did dig into this bill 986, and again, my Congress critter isn't on it.
You're an NRA basic pistol instructor?
Sure.
So you can give your NRA basic pistol class is enough for a person to apply for Arizona or Florida permits.
I didn't know that.
Yes, sir. Yeah, those two specifically are the ones that I talk about. Utah is the only one I can't. I will tell you that Florida is twice as expensive as Arizona, and the only difference is with the Florida permit, you get the state of Florida.
Interesting.
So if you're going there, then you need to spend the $111. It's $115 for the Florida if you're going to go to Florida. But if you're going to all the other states that are on the Florida list, they're also on the Arizona list, and Arizona is $60. And you're an instructor, you don't need a class, and your basic pistol class is enough for your students.
How cool is that? I'm glad you're on the show.
I'm sorry.
Give yourself an NRA basic pistol, you're good to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I have lots of people that go through my Illinois concealed carry that apply for additional permits.
Sure.
The Utah one gives you a couple of more. But it's a pain to become a Utah instructor.
It is, but for me, two of them it gives you that Arizona and Florida do not are
Minnesota,
Nebraska, and Minnesota.
Yeah, I know.
Two biggies for me.
Yeah, I don't have. Minnesota's about the only state, other than up Maryland and North, California and Oregon that I can't get with my North Carolina permit. I get Nevada, which is, for some states, it's hard.
Yeah.
Now, Gary, you would know because you used to live there. When John has his so-called reciprocity with Nevada, is he banned on the Strip, or can he carry in Las Vegas?
He said his permit's valid there, so yeah, of course.
Okay.
I just may not be able to go into a casino.
Right.
It depends on how they're posted.
Exactly. Most of them are not.
Oh.
But I could not speak for
Circus,
the past 3 years that I
circus
haven't
is
lived
not.
there or been there. Talk to Paul. He just came back. Carl, Rob, you guys were all there. You guys know.
I didn't care.
I know for a fact Circus is not posted.
Yeah.
And I can't. Though, guys, we were all at SHOT Show. I can't remember. They make a big deal about you're not supposed to be carrying at SHOT Show. It's in the brochures, but I didn't see it posted anywhere. Did anybody else?
Nope.
I didn't.
Mm-mm.
Now, not only was it posted, but in California, one of the casinos, I was stopping there to grab a meal, and I'm walking in with my buddy. We're coming back from the desert, doing some work out there, and the guy goes, "Are you carrying any weapons?" I go, "Hands are, like concealed carry." He goes, "Do you have a pocket knife?" And I looked at him. He goes, "We've had some local gangs come in here and go at each other, so I know it's not a problem, but just..." So they had somebody who would sit there and ask you.
Wow.
Well, yeah, that's kind of commonplace at the gun shows also. So I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, yes, but there it's two cops.
Or if you did like me yesterday, you went in the back door. Because I was working the booth, I
You're a vendor.
didn't have to pay to get in.
right.
And I was carrying a knife.
Brian and Valerie Wilson want to become foster parents in Nevada. They are also both concealed carry permit holders. Because of this, the Nevada Department of Child and Family Services denied their application. An unnamed spokesperson for the department said they were denied because of concerns that a child could access the firearm and ammunition. The department's regulations require that guns and ammunition be stored in separate, secure containers in any home where foster children reside. Fortunately, there is hope for the Wilsons and other would-be foster parents. They testified before the Nevada Assembly Judiciary Committee in support of a bill that would allow them to carry loaded firearms and to be foster parents. The bill is AB 167, sponsored by Representative Michelle Fiore. As might be expected, bureaucrats at the Nevada Department of Child and Family Services and at the Clark County Family Services are against the proposal.
That, if you have any kind of memory at all, short of being total Alzheimer's, you ought to remember that name. It came up earlier in the show.
Exactly.
Bless her heart.
Yeah.
I emailed her and asked her if she wanted to come on. I haven't heard back.
I wrote this up, and I heard about it from a friend of mine, coworker, who sent me a direct message on Twitter saying, had I heard about this, and she thought it was just absolutely ridiculous.
I've been through the California foster parent investigations, background checks. I get fingerprinted by the FBI, all that good stuff. And there are just so many odd questions, Do you have dangerous objects in your backyard? And I'm going, a junkyard? And they go, horseshoe pit, because it has steel spikes that stick out of the ground. And I looked at her and went, rose bushes, dangerous. Oh, these people just will drive you nuts.
Yeah. Huh.
All right, let's go ahead and move off to the gun quote. I want to go ahead and handle this one because our good friend Miguel Gonzalez of the Gun Free Zone blog provided the gun quote this time. Yesterday on his Facebook page, he posted this. When you say, why isn't the NRA doing something about this, you sound exactly like, why isn't the government doing something about this? Maybe it's time you get off your ass and start doing something about it. To which I can only say, go Miggy.
Amen.
Yep. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right. That's going to do it for our news segment. Hang on, everybody. We'll be right back with Kathy Jackson right after this. Okay, DGUs. Got a light week on DGUs.
I'm impressed you guys scraped these up. Good work.
I was gonna say I don't know how you guys were sitting on the midweek show, but man, this one was like, give us some. Susan was the one that found the last one, and I think she did a really
Found it this morning.
Yeah, she did. She had doing a lot of searching to find it. So
yeah.
All right, Gary, you want to bring us in for DGUs?
That's what I live for.
All right, rolling now.
Hi, and welcome back to the Polite Society Podcast, powered by the Firearm Policy Coalition. Let's get into the DGUs, Defensive Gun Use segment. Susan, give us the first one.
An Altoona, Florida woman says she was forced to open fire on an ex-boyfriend who was trying to break into her home. The Lake County, Florida Sheriff's Office documented her accusations that the boyfriend had been stalking and harassing her. The homeowner had been complaining to authorities for months about the actions of her ex-boyfriend. She told the judge that she felt like... However, the judge denied her petition for an injunction, saying she had failed to prove her case and that the stalking complaints needed to be handled by deputies. Without that meaningless piece of paper, the woman was helpless in face of that dangerous threat. Except she had a gun.
I mean, the cops did all they could, and they helped file a piece of paper for her. The rest was up to her, and she did what she needed to do.
And
Amen.
then they filed another piece of paper.
Stalking exes are not limited to Florida. Early Wednesday morning, an Indianapolis woman was forced to shoot Anthony Santura Smith, 34, her ex-boyfriend, after he kicked in her apartment door. She and her 2 young children were asleep at the time. Neither she nor the kids were harmed, but her ex-boyfriend was killed. While the woman did not have a protective order against Smith, there had been earlier incidents of domestic violence with the police involved. Police investigators say they are pretty confident that this is a case of self-defense.
This tells me that, ladies, if you got an ex-boyfriend, you should have a gun.
Good thing I've been married for a while then, huh?
You still got a gun.
Or to choose your boyfriends a little better the first time.
You know, wait, Paul, no. You know, there are lots of people for whom boyfriends and girlfriends come and go, and they don't get crazy and kick in doors in the middle of the night and threaten people.
That's true. Very much. That was a backdoor way of me saying everybody. Every woman should have a gun because everybody. Susan, do you know any women that? Well, I suppose maybe they may be pitching for the other team, but do you know any heterosexual female that has not had more than one boyfriend in their lifetime?
No.
Okay. I
had several before I met you.
There you go. I'm just saying all women need to have guns is all I'm trying to say.
The great enabler. I want you on my side, Paul.
Well, it's the great equalizer.
Oh yeah,
it is.
We talk about it all the time. I mean, there is a disparity of force there, and there really is only one way to assure equalizing that. You know, everybody says, "Oh, get a bat, get a taser, get a this, that, and the other." Those things are so ineffective on far too big of a percentage of time that I don't agree with there's an alternative, because I don't think there is.
And they also force you to be in actual contact with the aggressor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right.
Yep. God made man, Samuel Colt made him equal.
Yeah.
The owner of a local security firm saved a kidnap and rape victim after she escaped from her assailant. He essentially stared down the suspect while calling 911 for help. Fred Edwards owns Night Vision Security. He was at home in his apartment getting ready to go to a community meeting. As usual, his sidearm was strapped to his hip. That's when the kidnap victim began banging on his apartment door. Edwards talked to the badly beaten woman outside his apartment, and he immediately called 911. The kidnapper, Craig Lazon, then pulled up in the victim's SUV. Fred Edwards said, quote, "He looked at me. I didn't know what he was going to do, so I held onto my sidearm without taking it out of the holster. And I told her, don't worry." End quote. Lazon got back in the vehicle and drove away. Police later arrested him at a motel. Prosecutors charged Craig Lazon, 37, of Albany, Oregon, with attempted murder. While on a week-long meth binge, he tied up his wife, repeatedly beating, raping, and sexually assaulting her. Lazon left their apartment, telling his wife he was making preparations to drown her. Fortunately, she escaped. Here's another example where a firearm didn't need to be fired or even aimed to save a life.
I love this DGU. It's one of the cases where you can say that, despite what the other side says, this is a time where a good guy with a gun stopped a bad guy. Something they say has never, ever been documented. Here's yet one more documented case.
Paul, there's something I find fascinating this. You can be an abusive, drug-crazed idiot, and seeing somebody stand there with a hand on a gun, you know you don't want to tackle that dog.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this time, let's not sell that as a typical result, because drug-crazed idiots don't think that that's a problem.
Gary, you can always find a bigger idiot. I surrender. That's a good argument. But in this case, he
it was very good.
Jerry Jameson, 41, was at his Oklahoma City home with his 3 kids on Thursday afternoon. Russell Elmerling and David Cox knocked on the door, which was answered by 2 of the Jameson kids. The home invaders then forced their way into the Jameson home. Emmerling, 21, pulled a gun and demanded money. During the struggle that ensued, Emmerling shot Jameson 3 times in front of his 3 kids. Jameson somehow was able to get control of the gun despite his wounds and shot Cox. Both Jameson and Cox were transported to OU Medical Center, where Jameson died during surgery and Cox is in serious condition. Emmerling escaped in a getaway car, but later turned himself into police, where he has been charged with first-degree murder. Police are still seeking the getaway driver. A GoFundMe page has been set up for the Jameson children, as Jerry Jameson was a single father and their sole support.
Please, folks, if you can get to that GoFundMe page and you can give anything, please do it. I want to point out one more thing. This is a case of this is a defensive gun use. However, the people attacking brought the gun. This is a case of that can never happen, because according to the other side, because, well, if you have a gun, the bad guys are just going to take it away from you and use it against you. In this case, the good guy took the gun away from the bad guy and used it. Unfortunately, he lost his life. But in this case, the good guy took the gun away from the bad guy and used it on the bad guy. I wish he'd have had a gun of his own earlier.
Yeah. And if you had had a gun earlier, it might have been a little different. I will say that his 14-year-old son, who was the oldest child there, EMT said he did an extraordinary job of holding a compress against his father's wounds, trying to keep him stable until the EMTs arrived. Which really sucks that a kid has to do that to try to save his father's life.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to point out that we do have links to each of our defensive gun use articles and news articles up at PoliteSocietyPodcast.com. Also, we started segmenting the show out, so if you want to share just the DGUs or maybe just a new segment or maybe just one of the Kathy Jackson segments with your friends, you can do that as well. We're going to go ahead and step aside to break here. We got email to go through when we come back, and we'll get to that email right after this. Okay. One more segment, and we can all call it an evening. Well, you guys can. I got to edit and put a show up.
No, I find it
this
interesting.
Isn't new. This isn't a new email, is it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I would like to thank you for announcing the Black History Month Diversity Shoot on your podcast. It was a success, yeah. Unless you guys
he's also hosting a second pro Second Amendment diversity shoot in April.
Okay.
He wants me to announce it, and so I just threw the whole email in there, figuring it'd be easier to do it that way than any other way. So.
Yeah.
And I think that one came in on Tuesday or Wednesday to my personal email box.
Okay. We had similar email last week. That's all. So.
You did?
Thought you did.
Has it already? I don't remember it. Has it already been announced on our show?
I don't.
Okay. All right. I think it's about my turn. I think everybody else has had a turn. Unless you want to bring us back in, Susan.
No, it's your turn.
Okay. Here we go. Coming back in 5. Hey, and welcome back to the Polite Society Podcast, powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. This is our email segment. Susan, we got a couple of them. What's the first one?
The first email is from Tony. Paul, I would like to thank you for announcing the Black History Month Diversity Shoot on your podcast. It was a success. We introduced some new shooters to the sport and informed them of the minefield that is gun ownership in New Jersey. I'm hosting another event in April. Could you announce this one also? It is open to anyone that wants to shoot and learn how to fight the anti-civil rights zealots. Could you post my event on your Facebook page so people can let me know they are attending? Thank you again for your help. The following is the announcement.
And we're going to go ahead and stop it there. The whole thing is up on our Facebook page. And yeah, Tony, I absolutely am glad to announce that that is up. Folks, go check our Facebook page. Check the show notes. All the information is up there. And good luck on the 16th for that coming off, Tony.
Paul, can we mention to our listeners that it is in Woodland Park, New Jersey on April 16th?
Yep, at the Gun for Hire range.
Yeah.
Worth the price of admission just to listen to Anthony Klein.
Yeah.
Ken in Phoenix sends the next one in. Paul, very interesting topics when your podcast wanders sometimes. This week it was truck mirrors. I used to drive. Star Trek. Been a fan for 50 years. And trumpet music. I played in high school. I could relate to Grant's comments about how old trumpets don't work today. My trumpet was indeed from the old days. It was made before A440 was adopted in 1926. But my parents got a great deal on it, not knowing there was a difference. The problem was, it could never be tuned to match the rest of the trumpet section. I was relegated to third chair, even though I was the best double and triple tonguer of the lot. Always enjoyed the diversions from the main topics, be it trucks, trumpets, doggies, or Trek. Ken.
He also, at the end of that, he says he's always a full show downloader. Thank you for that, Ken. And he says, TWIG, I'm guessing that's This Week in Guns is his second favorite 2A podcast. I hope that we're number one, and I think Chaz is going to be disappointed that he's not number 2. And he adds a PS, don't worry about everything on the internet not being true. With ObamaNet, it will be regulated into all truth all the time. So.
Well, Chaz is always number 2 with me.
Chaz and number 2. Something kind of...
Don't go there.
Okay.
Family show.
Yep. All right. I want to, before we go, I don't see anything in the show notes. I'm guessing that's because it's not supposed to be there, but I need to ask anyway. Rob, John, anything about blogs we want to talk about?
Not for me.
Not for me.
Okay. Well, I think that does wrap up then another episode of the Polite Society podcast. I'd like to thank Kathy Jackson. It's been a long time since she's been on the show. I'm glad we were able to get her back on. I'm glad she was able to join us today. And that will do it then. Until next time, everybody.
Stay safe.
Be aware.
And we'll see you down the road.
The views and opinions on the show you just heard are those of the host and the guest and are not necessarily the views of any sponsors or other affiliations. But hey, not everyone is as smart as we are.
Before we go off the air, I do want to once again mention our advertisers, ABN Army Surplus, where we are here today, and we come to you live most Sundays here from ABN. Concealment Solutions, Concealment Solutions, Crusader Weaponry, New Jersey Second Amendment Society, the Firearms Safety Institute, and, of course, the Firearms Policy Coalition. Keep coming back and tuning in to us. We'll be back next Wednesday, 3:30, or next Sunday, 3:30 p.m., for a live show again. Thanks, everybody, for watching.